Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So for this video, I'm going to talk about the crisis in Israel and Gaza. As you all know, over the weekend, there was a surprise attack against the state of Israel. Hamas is responsible for the attack. Hamas killed like 200 people at a festival. They took like 100 hostages. The hostages include women, men, and children. The hostages include military personnel and ordinary civilians. And many people were killed during this surprise attack committed by Hamas. And in response, Israel has launched a bombing campaign against Hamas, bombing many areas in Gaza. And so far, like 1,300 people have died in this conflict. About 800 people died in Israel. 500 people at the time of this reporting died in Gaza. And now Israel has a total blockade against Gaza, blocking food, water, and electricity from being used in Gaza. And there has been talk about the possibility that Iran may have played a role in this whole attack by sponsoring and supporting and assisting with this plan carried out by Hamas. So I want to just take some quick time to share my thoughts about this situation. Obviously, I condemn all forms of terrorism, whether that terrorism is committed by Hamas, Israel, or even the United States of America. And I don't think that there's any kind of justification for what Hamas did. There's never a justification for killing innocent, unarmed civilians. There's never a justification for taking hostages, basically kidnapping civilians and threatening to kill them. There's never an excuse or justification for that. And I condemn those types of actions. And I also condemn the actions that help create this toxic, explosive environment that we are seeing unfold right now on the news. And this is something that you rarely hear about in the mainstream media. I'm going to post a link to a video from Democracy Now! That features a distinguished Columbia University scholar explaining the history behind, the whole situation in Israel and Gaza. The fact of the matter is, mainstream media ignores that reality. They ignore the history. They ignore how Israel was created in the first place. Israel is an occupying force. Israel is a colonial force. Israel is a force of oppression to the Palestinian people. That land that they have over there was taken by force. That land that they have over there was taken by terrorism. Thousands upon thousands of Palestinians were displaced from their homeland as a result of Israel's actions. And even to this day, Israel continues to occupy Palestinian territory. Israel continues to oppress the Palestinian people. Israel continues to have a virtual apartheid type of state over there when it comes to the treatment of the Palestinian people. You can't oppress people for decades and not expect a reaction eventually. You cannot create these kind of conditions, create such a toxic environment of oppression and not expect some kind of reaction. Again, the reaction in this instance is not justified. The actions of Hamas are not justified. And frankly, I think that what they have done is undermining the cause of the Palestinian people. Because when they look at the horrific acts that were committed by Hamas, it's easy to demonize an entire group of people. It's easy to demonize the Palestinian people and discredit their legitimate struggle for liberation. When you have this type of extremism committed by Hamas. You know, they're committing these atrocities and they're putting God's name on top of it, which is a horrific thing to do. They are doing more to defame Islam than any non-believer ever could by associating these acts of barbarism with God's name. You know, as they're kidnapping people, as they are spitting on people and stuff like that, they're screaming, God is great. And that is a blasphemous use of God's name. And it's a shame to see this kind of thing happen. And it's unfortunate that they are playing into the hands of their enemy by engaging in this kind of activity. You know, because now people are going to be less sympathetic to the cause of the Palestinian people. Now the mainstream corporate media has what they need to further demonize and discredit the legitimate struggle of the Palestinian people. And few people are going to care about the history at this point when they see this type of action. And by engaging in this action, they are basically providing Israel with the excuse that it needs to further oppress the Palestinian people, to bomb the Palestinian people. They're giving them a green light to launch these intense, you know, bombing campaign against the Palestinian people. And, you know, that's just unfortunate. It's an unfortunate, horrific tragedy that's unfolding over there. And I have to say to the state of Israel, you can't bomb your way into peace. You cannot invade your way into peace. Even if you wipe out all of Hamas' current leadership and all that kind of stuff, that is not going to bring peace to the Middle East. That is not going to bring peace to Gaza and Israel and the West Bank. As long as you continue to occupy, there will never be peace. As long as you continue to oppress, there will never be peace. As long as you continue an apartheid system of oppression against the Palestinian people, there will never be peace. And by bombing and killing innocent people, whether intentionally or unintentionally, you are doing nothing but planting the seeds for future generations of terrorists, quote unquote terrorists. You are paving the way for continued hostility and animosity. The fact of the matter is this cycle of violence that is going on over there doesn't serve, you know, the Palestinian people, and it doesn't serve the Israeli people. All it does is perpetuate the violence. Violence begets violence. And, you know, I believe in justice, but, you know, this concept of an eye for an eye, and where I think it was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King who said this: if you take that philosophy of an eye for an eye, that leaves everyone blind. And that's what we see in the crisis over there in Israel and Palestine. Again, I want to encourage you all to watch a very important news clip from Democracy Now! Because it offers a different perspective. You know, we often see a perspective that, you know, focuses on the suffering of the Israeli people. And, you know, I think that it's important for people to understand about the extent of the suffering, the extent of the violence that's committed against the Israeli people. But you also need to have that same kind of coverage when it comes to atrocities committed against the Palestinian people. You also need to humanize the Palestinian people the way you humanize the Israelis, and show the different perspectives and have different voices instead of, you know, a sole singular type of focus on one perspective. So again, I will post a link to that video in the comments so that you all can check it out for yourself. And I think it touches the surface. It gives you an idea about the history. It tells you about the history of how Israel was created in the 40s and how many people were displaced as a result of that. It tells you about the continuing occupation and oppression of the Palestinian people. And, it's just a horrible situation. The only other thing that I'll add is this, I hope and pray that this conflict doesn't expand beyond, um, you know, Israel and the occupied territories into other countries, because now there's talk of how they're trying to link this situation to Iran, trying to say that Iran sponsored this or had some role in the planning of this. And that will pave the way for more war against Iran, something that can turn into a major catastrophe, like a major conflict. Just as, during 9/11, because of the rhetoric that came from the Bush administration at the time, they tried to blame Iraq for what happened during 9/11. And because of that, you had an invasion of Iraq, occupation of Iraq, many thousands upon thousands of people died, and you had a destabilization of the Middle East as a result of that. And I just hope that we're not going down that path again. We need to use our voices to call for peace in America, call for peace in the Middle East, and call for justice in this situation, because the bottom line is there will never be peace as long as Israel continues to occupy Palestine. There will never be peace as long as Israel continues to oppress the Palestinian people. There will never be peace as long as Gaza is virtually an open air prison. So those are my quick thoughts about this situation. I'm really interested in hearing from you. I want to hear your thoughts about this situation. I just think that this is a horrible tragedy, and I hope and pray that there is peace in the Middle East and in our world.